Today we'll be having an interview with Professor Albert Michelson. He's been pretty active in the science community as of late, and just want to ask him some questions about his recent experiment. Professor Michelson, you can come in now.
Hey, thank you for having me.
How you doing?
Hey, good. How are you? Good.
So, Professor Michelson, so we've been hearing about this experiment you've been doing. Could you give us a name for it and some details of this experiment?
Yes, of course. I'm very excited to tell you about my findings in my experiment today. We call it the Michelson-Morley experiment. Myself, Albert Michelson, and my partner, Edward Morley. He could not make it here today due to COVID, but...
Okay. So, you just, go into a slight description of what this experiment was, what y'all were looking for, some of the end goals of this.
Of course. We started with a theory. How does light behave on its own? Or does light have something in which it connects to, which it drives through? Think of sound. We know sound to be thought of in waves. It can travel through water, through air, but it can't travel through a vacuum. Light can. Why is that? What we sought to do is prove that is light on its own a universal constant, something that's always been there, or is something driving it to help it go through?
Okay. All right, let's take it back to the beginning of this experiment. Where did y'all, do this experiment?
Well, I'll give you a brief history. Okay. Myself and Mr. Morley, Professor Morley, chemist, I met him in my state of Ohio, home state. I lived there with my wife, Edna, and I got a son, 3 daughters. Aside, I met him while going through studying university's teaching. I liked his research. He researched elemental masses, atomic masses, very precisely. His research is very precise and accurate. I needed that. So I took him with me to Germany. And in Germany, we conducted the first Michelson-Morley experiment for 2 years.
And this Michelson-Morley experiment is what y'all are finding to...
Yes, that's the name of the experiment in which we used a device that I created, the interferometer.
Okay.
It's a device in which has 2 mirrors, two semi-transparent mirrors, one fixed, one free range. I spin the free range mirror at 130 turns per second. I shoot a beam. This beam will break due to the revolution. That revolution will carry the light beams into 2 separate directions. They won't travel the same distance, and I'll tell you why. When this happens, we get what's known as a phase displacement. And in a phase displacement, we can figure out a pattern. We want a pattern. If we don't have a pattern, then the experiment is a failure. We conducted this with the hopes of finding this pattern, to point to this ancient thought of medium in which light travels through. We call it the aether.
Interesting. Were there any driving factors or significant events happening in the world during this time that made you do this experiment?
I've always been driven. Like, the universe called me to do optics, light. I was born to figure out light.
Okay.
What's happening in this time, 4 years earlier, I heard of this man, Alexander Graham Bell, and another one. He's not as well known. I've forgotten his name. But they invented what? A telephone?
Yes.
I'd never even heard of it. It amazed me.
It's groundbreaking.
They used sound and electricity to carry sound. They use electricity to carry sound.
It's magic.
It's.
My people, I think it's magic.
What are we going to be in the year 2000?
I don't know. That sounds like it's going to be the end of the world.
I won't make it to that.
Well, that's amazing. Alexander Graham Bell,
Yes.
brilliant man.
A brilliant scientist.
Okay. else was involved with this? In this experiment, was there anyone else?
It was just me and my partner,
Okay.
Mr. Morley.
Mr. Morley.
As I said before, he was a professor of chemistry at one of the colleges, universities in Ohio, in which I was staying at.
Was it the Ohio State University?
No, we didn't call it the Ohio State University.
Okay.
It was a university in Ohio.
Sounds good.
I am not Mr. Morley, so I couldn't tell you the whole story.
Okay. Well, too bad Mr. Morley couldn't be here today.
Yeah,
We're thinking of him.
he was a good driving force in this experiment.
Right. So, you and your partner, what were y'all's roles? Like, did you have a specific role in this, and did he have a specific role?
Yes, of course. My role, apart from creating the device in which to measure the behavior of light, my device measures not only the distance in which light travels, but its velocity. And that's what we were really looking for. The change in distance to prove a velocity, could there be a drag force? Kind of like if you had thrown a ball through the air, the force of the wind can slow the ball down. Can light be slowed down? My main role in this experiment was to observe. Make sure the device was working correctly. Mr. Morley, he was there, like I said before, his research was very precise. He dealt in precise measurements of atomic masses, elements, oxygen. I needed somebody like that, somebody unbiased and good. Mr. Morley's job was to calculate, make sure that both of us were keeping each other in check.
Awesome. So, what kind of impacts did your experiment leave on the scientific and physics community?
The impact is significant. It was, in my opinion, a watershed event. And I say that to say that in disproving my hypothesis of aether drag, static aether drag, I had first theorized that if the Earth is being acted upon by this aether, that we could detect it using the machine. That was not the case. Both light beams reflected back at that 45-degree angle semi-transparent mirror. They reflected back at the same time. Yes,
Wow.
You know what that means. No aether, no drag. Light is a constant. What I theorize is that light is a universal constant. No outside forces can slow light down. It always travels in the same speed.
Wow.
Knowing this, all of the previous theories that I had grown up studying and formulating with are disproven now. Gravity. A lot of people back then used aether to define why strange phenomena was happening, because we didn't know. But now we're starting to unveil the secrets of the universe, and that's very exciting.
That is. That's a lot of people might want to call your experiment a failure because you try to prove one thing, but it's almost a success because even though you didn't solve your hypothesis, you've changed the world.
I want to think so.
That's amazing.
I want to think that in my failure to prove the existence of the aether, that others in the future, and myself included, can build off of this and improve on theories and find more answers that we don't know yet. Undiscovered answers of the universe. Properties, natural behaviors. All encompassing.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be exciting.
It's going to be huge.
Very huge.
Well, thank you for
Don't you want to know how my device works? I've already said it, right?
the
Interferometer.
That's right.
But I didn't just use that for this experiment.
You used it for other things.
I've used it for several things. I've been accredited with having the most accurate measurement of the meter
Really?
in the scientific community. Using my device, I told you, not just velocity, but distance, using light. Since light can't be hindered, nothing can stop it. Unless, of course, you put something in front of the light, in which case it can't go through. It's basic knowledge.
Yeah.
But light, if measured properly, is very accurate. I used the same technique. Spectroscopy came out in 1863. It used we'd break up chemicals using light to see what it made up, what elements, what was in it. I used the same technique when inventing my device. I could use this to study the stars, celestial bodies. The star Betelgeuse, have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Very large one?
Yeah.
I accurately measured it. The first person in history to do so.
Wow.
Yes. This is a great leap for celestial studies.
It's impressive.
Yes. Take great inspiration from the Greek philosophers and how they measured and figured out things using basic knowledge and light.
Exactly.
It's all-encompassing.
And they were,
They had what, geometry? That was about it.
The golden rule.
That's amazing.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you for joining me today in this interview.
Yeah, it's
Nice to meet you.
Albert Michelson.
Albert. We'll see you later.
Thank you.